welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I am going to show you how to make the new pattern by Sew Yours Patterns, the Charlotte shoulder bag. This pattern is awesome. It's beginner friendly, even though it doesn't look like it could be a beginner bag. Totally can be. There's nothing really hard to sew in this at all. I know Melissa has an ingenious way of writing her patterns to make all levels of sewing happy. Yeah, so let me show you some of the features of this bag. So it is a medium-sized shoulder bag. I chose to do my strap as a crossbody strap, so it can be a shoulder bag or a crossbody bag. On the back, you have a decorative overlay for a zipper pocket. There's different ways you can do the closures. You can do magnetic snaps. I've chosen to do this flip lock. You could do like those moon magnetic snaps right here if you wanted something decorative. You could do so many things with this bag. Now, the real awesome part of this bag is the interior. It has this divider zipper pocket here. It's good size. Zipper pocket is the width of the whole bag, and it also has another zipper pocket right here. Okay, materials I used for this bag. So I use the Mora faux leather in beige for my exterior. My lining, again, I don't know. I pick stuff up here and there, and I never know what it's called. And I cut the selvages off, so I apologize for that. It was from Fabricland, I do know that. My hardware is all the matte black hardware from Atelier Fiber Arts. I will put a link to her website down below. She is a Canadian supplier of this matte black hardware, and it is awesome. One thing I really loved was this flip lock. Now, one of the things I hate about flip locks is you always end up having to punch that hole usually for the flip lock. This one you didn't have to, because it just kind of slides onto the flap, and then this is just a prong installation there. So this flip lock is like almost like how you would do one of those moon magnetic snaps, but it's flip lock. I just love it. I mean, the matte black hardware is amazing. Interfacing wise, I used Pellon products. Again, if you need any Pellon or Decovil products, I do sell them on my website. I only ship to Canada, so if you're in Canada and you're looking for that, my website is down below. I used Pellon Flex Foam as my stabilizer, SF101 on all of my cotton pieces. On the bottom for stabilizer, I have Decovil Heavy. I did in my flap add in, out of the seam allowances, some Decovil Light and then a low loft Pellon fleece, just to give it a little bit extra girth to be able to put my my lock on so it fit nice and tight. What else? Oh, if you want this pattern, Melissa has been very gracious, and for my subscribers, she has given us a coupon code. I don't get anything from that. It's just 100% for you. It gives you 15% off of the pattern. I have that coupon code linked down below. I believe it's Beans Bags, all in capital letters, 15, so you get 15% off. So if you want to purchase that pattern, click down below. Make sure you enter in that coupon code to get a little bit of a deal. And yeah, that's it. Again, I have to thank Melissa for allowing me to do tutorials on her amazing patterns. Again, she has, this is her third one. She has the Martini tote, the Kinsley tote, and now the Charlotte shoulder bag. I am going to be doing the Kinsley tote as well. That should be coming up here in the next couple weeks. Anyways, without further ado, let's get to making this bag. All right, what you're going to need for this bag is some number 5 zipper tape. I only showed 2 here, but you do need 3 number 5 zipper pulls. Optional purse feet. 2 1-inch rings or 1-inch D-rings. A slider if you're going to make your strap adjustable like I am. 2 strap ends. And I am using a flip lock instead of magnetic snaps for my closure. Your nameplate. Lots of rivets. Okay, for pieces. So all of my fabrics are backed with SF101 woven interfacing for my fabric. You're going to need 2 main lining panels. 4 interior for the middle pocket panels. Two zipper pocket lining pieces for your external zipper pocket and your lining zipper pocket. A lining gusset piece. An exterior gusset piece. An exterior back. Your flap lining piece. I am doing my lining in the same faux leather that I'm doing my exterior in. 2 exterior front side pieces. And an exterior centerpiece for the front of the bag. Your flap centerpiece and your 2 flap side pieces, which are cut mirror to one another. Your strap anchor piece. And your strap piece. I'm doing mine as a crossbody strap. Your 2 zipper ends for the center zipper pocket. You'll need 2 of these. These are your zipper overlays, and I am going to go ahead and coat these with edge coat on my raw edges. You are going to need some flex foam, Decovil Heavy for your bottom. And I am actually going to put on a piece of Decovil Light and some fleece in my main flat piece just to create some thickness for my turn lock. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to make my shoulder strap or my crossbody strap as I am doing. Again, you just do that by folding it in half, folding it upon each other. I do have a class down below on how to make handles if you need further instruction. Okay, so I am doing mine like a crossbody strap. All I have done here is installed 1 strap end and my slider, nothing further than that. Okay, so for our front panel, what we want to do is we want to take our center and our 2 sides of our front panel. We are going to put one side, right sides together with the center. And we are going to sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so we want to open this up in a way that our seam is going towards the side piece. And we are going to do some decorative top stitching with 3 rows of top stitching. The first one, we are going to start at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And take this nice and slow. This is going to be very visible on our exterior of the bag. This is decorative. It's actually very, very nice. So take your time to get your top stitching nice and even and nice and perfect. Okay, and then we're going to go in and do another line 1/8 of an inch away from that one at I guess that's about 1/4 of an inch away from the seam there. So take it slow to try to make it as even and parallel to one another as we can. And then we're going to go again with another 1/8 of an inch top stitch away from that line that we just did. Just like so. And then we're going to do the same with the other side. I will apologize now. I don't know if you can hear my old little dog Benny, who's 14. He's snoring here at my feet, and I don't want to wake him up, so I apologize if you can hear his snoring. All right, so we're going to do this one with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again, make it so the seam is pointing towards the side panel, and do your 3 layers of top stitching again. Now we want to make sure this top stitching is as even as we can possibly make it, because when we make the flap, we are going to want continuous lines. So we want to be as consistent as we can with our top stitching on this piece and when we do our flap piece. And you'll see when we get to our flap piece, it is sewn together almost the exact same way. All right, so I have my flat pieces here, and as I said, you are going to do the exact same process with these flat pieces that we did with the front panel. This flap will actually be even more of a focal point to the front of the bag, as it will be sitting on top of the main panel. So do take your time to make sure you get your top stitching really good. If you are not comfortable with the top stitching, you could definitely just go and do a regular top stitch of an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just one line, and it would look just as nice as well. So these extra 2 lines really are just decorative stitching for this bag. And of course, you don't have to use such contrasting thread as I am here. You could use a thread that isn't as noticeable, that would blend in with the fabric as well. There we go. So as you can see, if you line up those seams, top stitching is really nice if you can make it line up. Mine isn't perfect, but it's pretty close. All right, so I'm going to take my flat pieces here. As I said, this is not in the pattern. I just want to have a little bit extra stiffness in my flap. So I have cut a piece of Decovil Light the same size as my exterior flap piece, but I want to cut it within the seam allowances. So I'm just going to use my ruler and I'm going to cut this a 1/2 inch shorter along the 3 sides. So I'm just taking my pen and my ruler and I'm just giving myself some guidelines to where I'm going to cut my interfacing so I can fuse it onto the front flap within the seam allowances. With Decovil Light, you definitely don't want it to be in that flap seam allowance because it won't give a nice crisp rounded edge when we do turn it around. So that's why I am cutting it out of my seam allowances. All right, so I'm going to trim up my Decovil Light piece. Again, this isn't part of the pattern. This is just what I felt like I needed to do to add a little extra thickness as I am not doing a magnetic snap on my flap. I am doing that flip lock, so I need to know that there is going to be enough thickness there for to be able to grab onto my flip lock. Okay, so now I'm just going to find the centers of the one side. And I'm going to take my lining or my flap front panel. I'm going to find the top center of this one as well. And I'm using my dull scissors. Oopsies. Okay, so I'm going to take this to my iron and I am going to fuse this on like this. You'll notice at the top I didn't trim away my seam allowances. I actually want to have a little extra there as well. I do have a domestic, so it's not a big deal to sew through that. I am also going to take some low loft fleece and I'm going to fuse that on as well. All right, so that is done. Again, this is to give just a little extra thickness to grab my turn lock because I am doing a different type of closure. So now you're going to take your lining piece. Again, I'm using my vinyl instead of cotton for my flap lining piece. You are going to put these two pieces right sides together. And clip it all the way around. Okay, and then we are going to sew around here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, but not across the top. So just like this, and I'm going to take my pinking shears and I'm just going to trim this down to about a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance along those 3 sides that we just finished. Okay, once you've done that, you can turn it out. Take your finger and push that seam out nice. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of finger press these and then I'm going to use a few clips just to hold it in place because we are going to top stitch all around there. So go ahead and top stitch that with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now I always take some scrap fabric just to make sure my tension is right, because on an industrial machine your tension tends to get thrown off. I want to make sure that my bobbin thread and my top thread look really good, because both are going to be visible on the flap, on the top and on the wrong side of the flap. Okay, so that is done. Now, this is really cool. This is my thumb lock from Atelier Fiber Arts. I like this thumb lock because I don't have to punch any holes. It's just, it almost goes on like a thumb lock instead of a turn lock. It's great. But if you were going to be doing the magnetic snaps, what you do is install that now on the lining side here, not through the front side, and you would just put it wherever the pattern said to mark it there. But I'm using this amazing turn lock today. Okay, so I also went ahead here and I just basted the top of the flap closed. So now we are going to do our external pocket. So we are going to measure down 1.5 inches from the top. And we're going to take our overlay piece. You can see here lots of paint because I went and I used my Giardini Edge coat to edge coat the raw edges of this, just so I knew there wouldn't be any fraying or anything of my vinyl fabric here, and it just kind of gives it a nice finished edge. So I am going to pick my 2 rows of double-sided tape on the top and the bottom of this piece. You can see how nice the Giardini Edge coat is there. Okay, so I'm just going to remove it from the top side, or the paper from the top side for now. And then we are going to lay the centered on our exterior piece here. Now, you can see this is 12 inches, so I know the 6-inch mark is my center, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it with my ruler, making sure it's nice and even before we press it down. Here we go. And I'm just going to double check that I'm even on each side, which I am. And then you can go ahead and remove the paper backing off the other strip of double-sided tape. And I find with the overlay, if you just let it drop, it goes exactly where it needs to go. And then we're going to do some more top stitching. We're going to top stitch this along the outside edge. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull our tails long. We are not going to back stitch at the start and the stop of this top stitching. We are going to tie it off in the back. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. So once we get far enough away from where we've started, I'm not quite there yet. I can't quite see what I'm doing. Or maybe I can. I'm just going to pull at my bobbin thread, and it's going to pull my top thread through to the back, just like so. And then I'm going to continue with my top stitching, putting my needle down at those angles before I pivot. 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Make sure you don't get those bobbin thread or those long tails caught in our stitching along the back side. Be aware of where they are, making sure they're pulled out of the way. I'm keeping them out of the way here. Needle down before you pivot. I really like the shape of this overlay pattern piece. It's very, very nice, pleasing to the eye. And this is actually my preferred way of doing lining zipper pockets. I do have a class down below showing this exact method of how to do a zipper pocket with an overlay, and I just love that this pattern does it the way I do it, or my preferred method anyways. Okay, so now as we're coming to the end, when we get to where we started, we want to try to end with our needle down right in that first stitch there that we started at. So a little bit of hand cranking and needle placement. So we start and stop in the same hole. Do not backstitch. Pull your threads long, and again flip it over. Pull at that bobbin thread until you get the loop right here of our top stitching thread through. Pull it through. Just double check that we have a continuous line. See how we don't get that backstitch area there? It's just nice and continuous. And then we're going to take these 4 threads and we are going to tie them 3 or 4 times in a knot on the back. I do admit I wish that I did this with all my bags. I do sometimes get a little bit lazy and I just do a back stitch. But when it's on a fabric with such a contrasting thread where it's going to show, this is a really good way of doing it so you don't get that bulk of starting and stopping back stitches. And then because I'm using a nylon poly bonded thread, I am just going to melt it, kind of create my little knot here with that so I know that my knot will not become unraveled. All right, so there we go. Look how pretty that is. Okay, so now we need to cut our zipper pocket holes. So I'm just going to take my small rotary cutter here and start a line down the middle. And then take my scissors and go underneath the overlay. We only want to be cutting away that back panel. So just doing little V's there, cutting in behind. On all 4 of the corners. And then when you flip this over, you can cut away the excess fabric here. Being careful not to cut away the overlay fabric, just this back panel excess in between the stitching. Now when we get to the interior zipper pocket, it does have an overlay as well. We are going to do it this exact same process, and when we get there I'm not going to show you how we do it. You can just reference back to this or reference my class. The only difference is when we get to our lining piece, we are leaving the bottom of our zipper lining open. But I'll show you that when we get there. Okay, so on the back side here, we want to take some more double-sided tape, and we are going to just put it within the seam allowance, above and below the rectangular line. This is going to hold our zipper tape in place while we top stitch it. Okay, so now we are going to prepare our zipper lining for that pocket. So we're going to take double-sided tape again, and we are going to put it along the 2 short ends of the zipper pocket lining piece. Okay, so with one end, remove your paper backing of your double-sided tape. And then you're going to take your lining piece right side up and your zipper right side up, and you are going to stick the zipper right along that tape there. Both pieces right side up. And then we're going to sew this across here. So I've put on my zipper foot so I can get nice and close to the zipper teeth. And we're going to sew that there with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then what we're going to do is the other side of our lining piece, we're going to take the tape off and we are going to stick the unsewn side of our zipper tape along there, making sure that we are nice and even down the sides of our zipper panels here. And then sew that together like this. Then what I do is you cut this in half here. So this is actually how I prefer to sew it on. You could leave them on and flip it out of the way, but I prefer to do it this way. So I like my zipper pull to be close to the left. I'm going to take off the top piece of tape and I am going to set this on nice and centered how we want it to look, how much ever of the zipper tape you want to show. You just want it to be nice and even. And the tape will hold that in place for you. And then once you got that top part how you like it and where you want it to be, you can go ahead and take the tape off of the bottom part and line it up along the zipper teeth as well to where you want it to be. So I'm nice and even on top. Now I'll do the bottom as I just said. This is nice because you can see where the placement is going to be and you can adjust before you do any permanent sewing. And then we're going to go and top stitch this the same way that we top stitched around this top edge of that panel. So we want to pull our tails long again because we are not going to do the start and stop back stitches. We're going to tie our threads off in the back. Now you want to make sure that each of your lining panels, one is folded up and one is down to the bottom, because like this here, otherwise you could be sewing your zipper pocket completely shut. Okay, so I was trying to pull my tail out there. I wasn't quite far enough to be able to grab it, but now I can. So I pulled the bobbin thread to pull my top thread through. Make sure they're out of the way so I don't sew over them, and continue on. Okay, and remember we want to stop with our needle in the same hole where we started with. So when you get there, you can do some hand cranking and make sure that we get in that same hole. Pull your tails long and then pull it through again on the back and tie your threads off. And then again, I just burned my threads a little bit to create a little melted knot there. Just like so. Now you're going to pull your lining pieces right sides together. Now one will be shorter than the other. You can just even these up. And then pulling the exterior piece out of the way, we are going to go ahead and close up the 3 edges that we have open of our zipper pocket piece. So just fold the exterior piece up and out of the way so we're not accidentally sewing through that, and just close up your pocket. And I like to backstitch over the teeth just to give it a little bit more security. And I burn the edge of my zipper tape just to melt it so they don't fray. And we have a working pocket. All right, so now we're going to take our flat piece and our exterior piece, find our top centers, and we are going to put them right sides together, match up that center. And go ahead and, oh, actually, I'm just making sure that it is indeed centered, which it is. And go ahead and base that with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that's our 2 main panels done. Now we are going to work on our decorative strap anchor. So what you want to do is you want to mark a center line. So this is a 2-inch piece, so we are going to go ahead and make a 1-inch line down the middle. And then we're going to take some more double-sided tape and I'm going to use my thick 1-inch tape here, and I'm going to put it right down the middle on that line. And then we are going to fold both of the long edges into that center line. Just like how we make any connectors, except for this is a super long piece. My tape is super sticky. Again, I use leather double-sided tape, which I buy at Cleaner Supply. It comes in all sorts of different widths, which is great. It is not domestic machine friendly. It will gum up your needle. There are other types of double-sided tape you can use for domestic machines, such as Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape. I had no problems with Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape when I used to sew on my Juki 2010Q. It used to sew through it just fine. If you don't want to use tape, you can always use a little bit like a glue stick, or you can hold this together with clips. But the clips may get in the way a little bit when we actually go to put this on the bag. Or if you're using cotton, you could always just go ahead and press this. But as this is vinyl, it will melt, so I cannot do that. There we go. Okay, so on each of the shorter ends of our piece here, we are going to take an invisible pen or a chalk pen and mark 4 inches up on both short sides. And we are going to do top stitching just to that 4-inch mark, just up each side of 1/8 of an inch. And we are going to pull our threads through and long so we can have continuous. You can backstitch at this beginning part because it is a raw edge. But when you get to that line that we just drew, you're not going to backstitch. You're going to go ahead and pull your threads long, just like we did with the zipper pocket. And then on the back, pull your bobbin thread through, and then tie them off here. Now go ahead and do that with the other 3 sides. All right, so that is done. So now we are going to put some double-sided tape just in the center parts where we did not sew. And this is going to be used here pretty quick to stick it onto our gusset pieces so they won't move while we sew them to the bag. Just like so. You can put that aside for now. And now it's time to give our gusset pieces some shape. So on each of the short ends of our gusset piece, we are going to mark in 1 inch at the top on both the left and the right side there. We're going to do the one side first. So you're going to measure down 9 inches from the short side. Make another mark here. Do the same on the other side. So 9 inches down. Make a mark. And 1 inch in. And then we're going to cut this on an angle between those lines. So you're going to line up the raw edge where that 9-inch mark was with our 1-inch mark at the top. You can just draw a line and then use your scissors to do this, but I am just going to go ahead and use my ruler as a guide and use my rotary cutter to cut it nice and straight. Same with the opposite side. Okay, and then you're going to do the exact same thing with the other short end. And this is my favorite marking pen currently. This is a Soline Invisible pen. The marks disappear completely off of my vinyl, whether I use it on the front and back. I love it. Just bought it off of Amazon. And it's pink. Who doesn't love pink? Just like so. And then what you want to do is we want to put our Decovil Heavy piece on now. So we need to find the centers of our gusset pieces. So I'm just going to fold it in half. And do small clips at our center points on both sides. Then I'm going to take my Decovil Heavy piece and do the exact same thing along the long sides, find my centers. If you hear some rattling in the background, we are having a huge windstorm right now and it's really loud. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to fuse that Decovil Heavy piece on, and then I'm going to take my main pieces and my gusset pieces and attach them to foam. So I've done that. They're all attached to foam. I've put my nameplate on here. And all three of my exterior pieces have been foamed. Okay, so now we need to find the centers of our two short ends here. We are going to be putting on our decorative strap anchor onto our gusset piece now. So once I've found my centers of the two short ends, I am going to take a ruler and my invisible pen, and I am going to draw a center line down my gusset. Okay, and then I'm just going to double check that it is indeed center, which I am. Okay. Now, I am also going to fold this in half, but I'm not going to do snips. I'm going to take my pen and just mark where my center is on my strap anchor piece here. Again, before marking this with a pen, make sure your pen does come off or use some chalk. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a center line for my center snips as well, just as a guide. Okay, so remove your double-sided tape. And we are going to center that strap anchor onto the gusset of the bag. So line up those lines we just drew, and I'm just going to eyeball it. That looks pretty centered to me. Down that line. Now this will hang over. That is exactly what we want. So now we are going to go ahead and we are going to finish our top stitching. We are not going to backstitch. We are going to pull our tails long again. And we are going to put our needle down in the hole where that previous top stitching we had done with the two short sides matches up. And so all the way down to where our top stitching was that we previously did as well, putting our needle down in the hole that we ended in as well. And then we will tie our threads off in the back once again. Nice and seamless, no messy back stitching lines, as we want nice continuous lines for this bag. As top stitching is, I swear, the main decorative factor of this bag, and it's just so nice and so classy and so classic, in my opinion. I learned right there that my foam melts a little bit. It was okay, but it does melt a little bit. Okay, go ahead and do that with the other side. So here we go. How nice does that look? Okay, so now we are going to take these loose ends that aren't sewn to the gusset, and we are going to use some double-sided tape. This is where we're going to put our rectangular rings. Okay, so we're going to put some tape on the wrong side, take our rectangular ring, slide it on, Okay, and then we are going to put that raw edge right up where that stitching to the gusset starts. And I'm going to use just a little bit more tape on this side here to hold that in place. Like so. Okay, and we're going to do the exact same thing with the other side. There we go. Now I've got a little bit of fraying thread here, so I'm just going to burn that off a little bit. Okay, so now we need to mark where our rivets are going to go. So we want to measure down 9 inches from the short end of our gusset. And on our accent piece, we want to mark nice and centered. So 1/2 inch in. And you want to make sure you take your time with this because this is all decorative and it's all going to show. You're just going to put a little dot. And on each side, you're going to do 7 dots, all 1 1/4 inches apart from each other. And this is where we're going to be punching our holes for our rivets. So the first time I did this, I was measuring 1 1/4 from the top of the dot. Make sure you're measuring 1 1/4 from the bottom of the dot, if that makes sense. Otherwise, you just end up coming a little bit too close to your rectangular ring. And these last 2 rivets here that we are doing, these holes here, those are going to be what's going to hold our strap in place. So you can see I came a little too close there, so I'm just going to go and readjust my dots. Okay, so I went and I remeasured them. So I'm measuring from the bottom of the dot. You can kind of see how I'm doing that here. And then that gives me my perfect 1 1/4 inch measurements. So I'm going to just go through, eyeball this, make sure I have them all nice and straight before punching my holes. And then I have this awesome, I forget what this is called. Somebody has told me before, but I got it on Amazon. I want to say it's a Japanese leather hole punch. I don't know. Anyways, it's amazing. And then I'm going to go and install all my rivets through those holes once I have them punched. And do the exact same thing on the other side here. Okay, as I mentioned, these top 2 are where my connector is going to hold my rectangular ring on. So that's going to be where most pressure is going to be when this is connected to the handle. So I'm going to take 2 scraps of Decovil Heavy just on the top 2 rivet holes and just kind of back them for extra security with the Decovil Heavy scraps. So these two are kind of functional as well as decorative, where the other rivets are all just decorative. So these ones I just want to make sure they're going to hold up to holding the handle on. Okay, so go ahead and install your other two and then do the same on the other side. So here we go. So now it's time to put on our purse feet. So what you want to do is from the center of the last rivet, you want to measure in 2 inches. 2 inches in from the center of that rivet. And 1.5 inches up from the raw edge of the gusset. And make a mark. Do the same on the other side. Two inches in, 1.5 up. And then the same on the opposite side. Now the pattern only calls for 4, but my purse feet come in packs of 5, so I'm going to go ahead and install a 5th one as well in the middle. So I'm going to use my center notches on my gusset here to line up where it needs to be and make a mark right in the middle of that accent piece there for my 5th one. And then go ahead and install your purse feet. Okay, so how pretty is that? So now it's time to put our exterior together. So our center marks we have on our gusset and our center marks we have on our main exterior piece, we are going to match those up. And then match up the top ends. Put in a couple clips. Same with the other side. I always like to do my bottom center and my top sides first. That way we can evenly distribute the stitches the rest of the way. Nothing worse than working your way up and then finding out that your side piece is too short and having to pull out all those clips and start again. So this is a good way to avoid that. Now as you come to the curvy parts of this exterior, if the gusset isn't quite seeming like it's going to go all the way around, you can put little snips in that curve to help curve it around. I don't need to with this one. It actually curved in there quite nicely, but if it didn't, you can put small clips into your gusset piece just to help distribute that fabric a little bit more, but it worked out pretty good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew this on with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, and then I'm going to do another round of stitching 1/8 of an inch away from that because this is an all vinyl bag. I want to make sure that my stitches aren't going to be seeing through that stitch. Sometimes it pulls away when it's really thick. This helps alleviate that so you don't get that happening. And it also adds a little bit more security to the bag. Again, this isn't something that's in the pattern. This is just something that I like to do. especially when I'm using a different color thread than my fabric, because then you can really see it come through. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to do the exact same thing with the other main panel, matching it up on the other raw edge of the gusset piece. Rinse and repeat. Okay, so once you have that all done, you go ahead and you can pull it right side out and admire what your exterior is going to look like. Press out your seams really good around those corners. She looks lovely. Okay, so now for me, because I am not using magnetic snap, if you're doing what I'm doing here, I have to figure out where I'm going to put the other piece of my flip lock here. So I'm kind of eyeballing how my flap is going to go over. And then in that hole of my flip lock, I'm just going to mark approximately the center of it. Again, I really love this flip lock because unlike other flip locks, you don't have to cut a hole. They're great. Again, I got them from she's going to she's giving me voice lessons on how to say this. Atelier, I believe it's called. Fiber Arts is where I got this matte black hardware, as well as this amazing flip lock. I'm gonna definitely have to get a couple more of these to keep in my stash. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. And there we go. The exterior is complete. Okay, so as I said earlier, I went ahead and I did my lining pocket the exact way we did the exterior pocket. Only difference is we are leaving the bottom of this pocket open and then folding up the raw edges like we did here. Okay, so now we need to shape our gusset. This is done in the exact same way we did with the exterior, except for this time I am going to fold my cotton piece in half, and on the unfolded side, I'm going to cut both sides at the same time. So make sure you are making these marks on the unfolded side because you do not want to be cutting the folded side. This is just a quick shortcut to cutting it both at the same time. You can definitely go ahead and do both sides at different times. I am just going to do a shortcut. So 1 inch in, 9 inches down. Take my ruler, and we're going to be cutting through both layers. This is easier to do with the lining piece because it is just cotton, whereas the exterior couldn't do this with it being the faux leather. It was just too thick to fold in half to do this. I always find the lining goes together so much faster than the exterior. Okay, and because we're going to be doing a center zipper pocket, the next thing we are going to want to do is we're going to want to cut this gusset piece in half. So I'm actually going to fold it wrong sides together like so, perfectly in half, and I'm going to take it to my iron and I'm going to press it in half. So what the pressing does is it gives us a nice crease here so we know where to cut it in half, so it's exactly in half. Be careful if you're using a rotary cutter like me. And there's the Coco appearance of the video. She always has to bark at least once during my voiceover. Okay, so then we want to find the centers of each of these pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that with little snips. Just like so. So you should have a curved side and a straight side. Okay, so now let's prepare our center zipper pocket panel. So you're going to take your zipper ends, you're going to fold the two short ends into the center and press with an iron, and then fold them upon themselves, bringing the two folded sides together and press with an iron like so. And then you're going to slip it onto the end of your zipper. And on the inside edge, you're going to top stitch that with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you're going to do that with both pieces. All right, so this is what that looks like. So I'm just going to trim it up so it's even with my zipper tape, same width. Okay, and we're going to take one of our interior zipper panels right side up, and we are going to put double-sided tape on the top. Very much how we do a regular zipper pocket lining. And on the other side, same thing. Okay, so with one of them right side up and your zipper right side up, you are going to center your zipper on top. Now you're going to see your zipper doesn't go right to the ends, and that is what we want. So I'm just going to use my cutting board here, and I can see that the zipper end should come in approximately 1 inch on each side. And then stick it along the top. Okay, and then take your other panel and you're going to put this one right sides together and stick it along the top, the same place. And then we're going to sew across here. So I've put my zipper foot on again, and we are going to go across here with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Put your needle down before you move your zipper pull out of the way. Okay, and then we are going to fold these wrong sides together, like so, pulling both the lining and the exterior piece away from the zipper tape, and then we are going to top stitch through both of those with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then you're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing with the other side and the other two pieces. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're going to fold these lining sides together. We're going to line up our sides here and clip them all the way around. Make sure it's your exterior on the exterior, so your zipper pull should be on the outside. Clip that all the way around. And then you're going to baste these all the way together with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So this is that center zipper pocket all done. And now we need to attach it to our gusset. So you're going to take one gusset piece, the straight edge, not the curvy edge, but the straight edge. And we are going to put it right sides together with that zipper pocket. Line up our center marking, and I forgot to mark my center, so I'm quickly going to find that just by folding my pocket in half. Okay, so find that center of that straight edge of that gusset piece. clip it all the way around. Now the gusset isn't going, it's going to go quite a ways past the zipper pocket, and that is what we want. I am just doing a few little snips to evenly distribute that fabric around the curve, because we're turning that straight piece into a curvy piece, so the little snips definitely do help ease it around that corner. Same with the other side. So I'm just doing like little 1/8 of an inch snips. And then we are going to go ahead and we are going to baste these together with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now we have to attach the other side. So again, straight edge. Match up your centers. And the difference this time is we can match the gusset pieces all the way to the top of the other gusset piece. Like so. And clip it all the way around, doing your snips around the corners if needed to distribute that fabric. Okay, so now we are going to sew these together with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You want to make sure that your bottom gusset piece is kind of folded up and out of the way. You don't want it to fold under and then get caught in the seam. So kind of just be aware of where it is sitting and that everything is feeling nice and flat as you go around with your 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And that's done. Okay, so now we want to take the lining main panel that we have our zipper pocket on and make sure our zipper pulls are going the same direction. Place them like this, and I'm going to flip it over and match up the center of the curvy side of that gusset piece. Match up your top sides. And just like we did with the other pieces, it's ease around the corners. If you need to do snips, do the snips into the gusset piece to help ease the fabric around. I am at an awkward angle here. I apologize for my hands being in the way. I am not sure why I am cutting it this way, but hey, maybe for entertainment. It got the job done though. That's all that matters. All right, so we're going to take this to the machine, but what we're going to do on this one side is we are going to leave a 6-inch opening at the bottom of the lining piece on this side, and that is going to be for turning. And I always just write open just so it's a reminder when I'm at the machine. Okay, so you want to make sure you kind of fold the other part of the gusset up and out of the way, and we are going to sew along this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for about 2 inches, branch out to 5/8 of an inch, backstitch at our lines that we did, 5/8 of an inch, up until about 2 inches towards the top, and then go back down to 3/8 of an inch. And what this does is just makes it so our lining is not baggy inside of the bag. It makes it just slightly smaller, but we need the top to be the same width as the exterior of the bag, so that's why we started at 3/8 of an inch to about 2 inches down, and then branch out to 5/8 of an inch just to make it a little bit snugger in the bottom of the bag. Okay, and when you get to our line there, backstitch 3 or 4 times is what I do just to strengthen that seam. Jump over to where our other little line was, backstitch a few times, 5/8 of an inch, all the way around. And once again, when you get about 2 inches from the top, branch back down into a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So you can see how it's kind of wider here, narrower, and we have our opening at the bottom. Okay, so we have done the same with the other side. The only difference is we did not leave an opening in the bottom of the bag on the opposite side. So now let's put it all together. So the side that has the opening is the same side we want to stick our bag in right sides together with the lining. So you want to put the bags on the open bottom side of the lining, on the proper side of where that interior zipper pocket is. So you can see my interior zipper pocket is there and it's in there. That's really hard to explain, holy cow, but I think you see the visual. So you just make sure you're sticking it on the side of the interior zipper pocket that has the opening in the bottom of the bag. I think that explained it better. Okay, and then just like any other bag, when you're putting them together this way, match your centers. Again, I like to mark my centers at the front and back, and then my seams on the sides. And then I go ahead and I clip the rest of the two together through in like quarter sections. And I know that the fabric is evenly distributed around the bag and nothing is crooked, and it just makes it a lot easier, in my opinion. Matching up your seams so everything is nice and continuous. What I liked about this pattern is I didn't find any of the seams to be overly bulky. I didn't need my hump jumper at all. You may need it a little bit with a domestic, but I can't see anything being really overly too thick. Okay, so now we are going to sew them together. I sew them together from the inside of the bag. It's just the easiest for me because I do not have a cylinder arm machine or what's it called, the open arm of a domestic machine, free arm. Oh my gosh, I don't remember the name. Oh well, you know what I'm saying. So I'm going around with my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure your needle is down before you adjust your bag to get around in that circle. And then like I did with my exterior sides is I'm going to go ahead once I've made sure the lining and everything was caught in my stitching, and I'm going to go ahead and do another line of stitching within that seam allowance and an 1/8 of an inch away from that line, just to make sure everything is nice and secure. Okay, so just take another gander to make sure everything was caught okay, and then you can pull everything through the bottom of the bag. Now this was a little hard to pull through at first. If you can get the bottom out somewhat and then reach in and get the flap out, once you get that flap out, everything comes out nice and easy. There we go. So we've got the bottom out. And once we get the flap, the rest will slide right on out. There we go. You just want to kind of go around and make sure that there are no holes in that seam, along that seam that we just sewn. Everything looks pretty good. And once that's good, you can stick your lining into the bag. And you can start massaging down that seam and applying clips to prepare it for top stitching. Now this one is, you can't clip where the flap is because the flap is in the way of the clips. So when you're top stitching, just have to be mindful of that. So that's why I'm going to start with the flap. So I'm actually going to start on my side piece here just before the flap. Gosh, I wish I had a cylinder arm. One day. Okay, put your needle down and backstitch. I hope you can see what I'm doing here okay. And top stitch around with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Take it nice and slow. Again, this is very visible. Make sure there's no creases or puckers or anything as you go. Now when you get to the flat part, you want to make sure that your lining is pulled nice and tight there, and then top stitch like this across the flap. These sides are the bulkiest of the top stitching, and they're really not that bad, but maybe have your hump jumper handy just in case you need it. You don't want your walking foot to get caught up and tear up your vinyl at all. Take it nice and slow across the front. Top stitching is something you never want to rush. You want it to be nice and even and great stitches on the top side and the bobbin side. It's just something that is seen all the way around, so you want to make sure that you take extra care when you're doing your top stitching. And voila, we are done. Okay, so there we go. So now all that's left is to close up the opening in the bottom of that bag and the pocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up that zipper pocket, pull out the zipper pocket, reach in through the opening, find the hole in the bottom of the lining, and pull it through the zipper pocket. And take a few clips
and clip that opening shut, and then we are going to sew that shut with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is my preferred way of finishing off a bag, and I was just so pleased that this is how Melissa does it in her patterns as well. Okay, then you can stuff that back inside the bag. You can see it's all sewn up, and then just top stitch your pocket closed. Stuff that in, and then all that's left to do is to attach your straps. So whatever kind of strap you did, go ahead and rivet those on, and you are done.
All right, that's it. That's all. Wasn't that an amazing pattern and how it goes together? Love it. Again, thank you, Melissa, for allowing me to do tutorials on your patterns. If you haven't already, go buy her patterns. Discount code for my subscribers, 15% off. Thank you again, Melissa, for being so generous. Beans bags, all in capital letters, 15. It's all down below if you need to do that. So go buy these patterns and make sure you enter in that code to get some, get a little bit of a discount. Yeah, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and do me a solid. What else? What else? I think that's it. That's all. So until the next one, I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Bye-bye.